This happened when I was a junior in high school, and I keep thinking about it now that I'm older. Maybe someone can tell me if it was as messed up as I think it was. Our history teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, got really sick. Hospitalized sick. The principal told us she'd be out for a few weeks. No big deal. Substitutes come and go all the time. Then Mr. Henderson showed up. He seemed normal at first. Quiet guy, maybe in his 40s. Same brown jacket every day. Old leather briefcase that looked like it belonged in the 80s. But he had this way of watching us. Not like a teacher. Like he was studying us. The weird stuff started in the second week. He stopped following Mrs. Rodriguez's lesson plan and gave us strange assignments instead. Photocopied sheets with crooked text, like from an old machine. Character development research, he called it. The first one was simple. Describe your daily routine. Wake up. Time. How you got to school. After-class habits. It felt like a lazy assignment, but easy enough. Then the questions got specific. Where do you live? What does your house look like? Do you have siblings? When do your parents get home? Do you walk home alone? What route do you take? One day, I raised my hand and asked, "Why do we need to write about my little sister's schedule?" He looked up, and I swear his eyes lit up. Then he smiled. Not a teacher smile. Something else. Character development research, he repeated. Understanding. Family dynamics helps us analyze historical figures better. It didn't make sense, but I was 16. What did I know? The assignments kept coming. He wanted floor plans of our homes. To understand historical living spaces. Then, descriptions of our bedrooms. Include photos, if possible. Personal. Space psychology project. My friend Jake leaned over one day and whispered, "Dude, this is getting weird." I agreed. It was weird. But here's what really got to me. Mr. Henderson started staying after school. Not grading or helping students. Just sitting in his car, watching. My mom was usually late picking me up, so I saw him a lot. Same spot. Every day. Silver Honda Civic near the back of the lot, jotting things in a notebook as kids walked by. Once, I saw him following the Patterson twins' bus, driving slowly, keeping his distance. I wanted to say something, but say what? That our sub was creepy? Adults don't listen to that kind of thing. By the third week, the questions got even worse. What were our parents' work schedules? Exact times? Did we have alarms at home? Were our neighbors gone during the day? Were we ever home alone? Every time I walked into class, my stomach twisted. But I kept doing the assignments. We all did. He was still our teacher, right? Then something happened I'll never forget. One night, I stayed late for drama club rehearsal. It ended around 5:30. The parking lot was almost empty, but Mr. Henderson's car was still there. I ducked behind a bus and watched. He was on the phone, papers spread on his dashboard. Our papers. Our assignments. I could hear a bit of what he was saying. Stuff like schedules, opportunities, and the girl with the sick grandmother. That was me. I'd written about my grandmother in one of those assignments. I felt sick. My hands shook as I ran to the other side of the school and called my mom from there. The next Monday, Mrs. Rodriguez was back. No warning, no explanation, no goodbye from Mr. Henderson. He was just gone. I went up to Mrs. Rodriguez after class and asked, "What happened to the substitute?" She blinked. "Substitute? Honey, we never had a substitute. I was only out for a week with food poisoning." My blood ran cold. "But we had assignments. Photocopied sheets. Can you show me?" I pulled out my folder from my locker. She flipped through the pages, and her face went pale. "Take these to the principal, now." The principal asked questions and made copies. A police officer visited school the next week and interviewed some of us. But here's what haunts me. When I talked to kids from other classes, they didn't remember Mr. Henderson. "We never had a sub," they said. "Mrs. Rodriguez was only out a few days." But my whole class remembered him. I still have those assignments in a box in my parents' attic. Sometimes I think about digging them up, looking at them again. It's something I struggle to shake. I catch myself glancing over my shoulder whenever I see an older man in a brown jacket. The fact that adults dismissed it still chills me. I never felt safe on that campus again. I never found out what he was planning to do with all that information about us, and honestly, I don't think I want to know. My name is Alex Rivera, and I lived in Cedar Valley. I'm not trying to sound crazy here, but I need to tell someone about what happened in my senior year chemistry class. Maybe you'll think I'm making this up, but I swear everything I'm about to tell you really happened. I was enrolled in advanced chemistry with Mr. Torres, a veteran teacher of over 20 years. Students said his class was an easy A if you followed the rules and didn't ask too many questions. It was perfect for me, since I needed the credit to graduate. My lab partner was Sarah Martinez. She was meticulous, always double-checking measurements and reading safety instructions. Her notebooks were pristine, and she never missed a detail. The first few weeks were uneventful. We mixed baking soda with vinegar, observed flame tests, and practiced titrations. The lab smelled of sulfur and ammonia, but it was all routine. Still remember the fluorescent lights flickering and how the polished countertops reflected our nervous faces. The clang of metal tongs against glassware echoed ominously, and the scent of acids lingered around each station. I felt a growing tension in my chest, like something invisible pressed against my lungs. It was as though the laboratory itself was alive, watching us work. Then one afternoon, Mr. Torres unlocked a supply closet and brought out unmarked bottles. I asked what they were, and he said they were advanced compounds for college prep. The labels had chemical names I'd never seen. Sarah requested the safety data sheets, but he insisted they were standard and promised to share the details later. We accepted his answer and continued. In October, right after my sister's birthday, I arrived with frosting under my nails. We were working with a clear liquid from one of those bottles. Sarah followed every protocol, goggles on, gloves snug. 10 minutes in, she paused and frowned. "I feel dizzy," she whispered. Her voice shook, and her pupils were unusually large. She stared at the whiteboard formulas and whispered, "Do you hear that? The equations are talking." I heard only the hum of the fume hood. He rushed over, took the beaker, and announced, "Just a mild allergic reaction. Nurse's office now." His tone was firm but worried. In the hallway, I overheard his hushed phone call. "Reaction stronger than expected. Document all details." His voice was clinical, as if discussing an experiment. Sarah missed 2 weeks of school. When she returned, she was changed. Quiet, compliant, never asking questions. When I looked at Sarah, it felt like I was staring at a stranger wearing her face. Her eyes were empty, her laughter gone. The bright spark she once had was replaced by a hollow compliance that chilled me more than any chemical ever could. I tried asking what she remembered. She said only that she felt sick, and that was all she could recall. That's when I began watching Mr. Torres more closely. He carried a small notebook during labs and scribbled constantly. One day, I glimpsed his notes. My name was followed by baseline response within expected range. Sarah's page included heightened sensitivity to compound 7 and memory suppression successful. The phrase memory suppression sent chills down my spine. I noticed other students changing too. Jake, once fidgety, became calm. Emma, who argued with teachers, became obedient. The locked supply closet had a small window. I climbed up and saw bottles labeled Compound X47 and Subject Compliance Enhancer. The labels looked professionally printed. I snapped a photo, but later it was too blurry to read. It was as though my hands shook when I needed them steady. I remember the bitterness of the metal taste from the beakers, the cold touch of the glass, and how my heartbeat echoed in my ears every time I heard the lid click shut. Those details are branded in my memory like scars. Mr. Torres's gaze during experiments felt predatory, like a scientist observing lab rats rather than a teacher guiding students. I wanted to tell someone, parents, principal, anyone, but feared being dismissed or triggering an investigation that would tip him off. Sarah and I graduated. She moved on to college but remained distant. At graduation, I asked about that lab day, and she stared blankly, clueless about what I meant. I held onto the blurry photo for months, hoping to decode it, but eventually I deleted it, telling myself I was overreacting. I wake up at night, heart pounding, convinced I still smell solvents and hear whispers of formulas. The memory of that class haunts me like a warning. Knowledge can be weaponized by those we trust. And I wonder, if I hadn't paid attention, would I have become just another entry in that notebook? I share this now hoping someone else will believe me. I need to tell someone about this because it's been eating at me for months now. I can't sleep right anymore. Every time I close my eyes, I see his face and that calm expression when everything went down. I worked evenings on the high school cleanup crew for gas money. My mom's car breaks down all the time. The job seemed simple. Empty trash, wipe whiteboards, mop floors. Mr. Garrett was the head custodian, quiet and hunched, with thick glasses magnifying his eyes. He nodded when our shifts overlapped, but rarely spoke. I assumed he just kept to himself. But he was always in the computer lab. Every night I worked, he sat there for hours. The door was closed and lights dim. Once I asked what he was doing, he claimed deep cleaning keyboards. I figured keyboards get filthy, but I never saw him clean anything. I only saw him hunched over a laptop, clicking and typing. Sometimes, he had multiple USB drives plugged in. I assumed he updated software. I knew nothing about computers. My buddy Jake always left his charger in that lab. One night I returned after my shift to fetch it. The main doors were locked. I had emergency keys. The hallway lights were half off to save electricity. My sneakers squeaked on the polished floor. I hate that sound. It reminds me of hospitals. I passed the computer lab and heard rapid clicking. Mr. Garrett's car remained in the lot. The door was ajar. I peered inside. He sat at a student computer with 3 USB drives attached. The screen showed a girl's Facebook page. Not his, but Sarah's from chemistry class. He clicked through her photos. Then he opened a desktop folder and dragged images into it. His focus was intense, like this was critical. Filing cabinets loomed behind him. I never noticed them before. They looked oversized for maintenance supplies. I should have left immediately. Instead, I stayed frozen. He glanced at the door nervously. Then he switched to another account. Another student's profile appeared. He knew everyone's passwords. I could barely remember mine. He took screenshots, copied files, organized them in folders. My phone buzzed, with a text from my mom. The sudden noise snapped me out of my trance. I bumped the door, and it creaked. He looked up and smiled calmly. "Oh, hey there," he said, as if nothing was wrong. He invited me inside. My legs felt heavy, though I wanted to run. He turned the laptop toward me. It displayed private Instagram DMs, messages about family drama and personal secrets. "Kids think it's private, but I observe them," he said. He clicked to reveal a girl cutting herself. Photos she sent to her boyfriend laid bare. He opened a cabinet filled with printed screenshots and photos, hundreds of pages piled neatly in folders. "I've done this 7 years," he said proudly. Over 300 students cataloged. He flipped through records of text, posts, grades. "This one planned to run away," he explained. "This one's parents are divorcing secretly." The tone was clinical, not creepy but chilling. He analyzed behavioral patterns like a scientist. I finally whispered, "Why do you do this?" He looked surprised by the question. "Because it's fascinating to see their authentic selves," he replied. He continued revealing private details and psychological observations. My mind raced with fear and disbelief. I don't remember leaving, only that I needed to escape. I mumbled an excuse about going home. He nodded and returned to his work. I never reported him. Who would believe such a story? I was afraid he knew about me too. I quit the job the next week under the pretense of focusing on grades. But I still see him pushing his cart in hallways. He nods and smiles that same calm smile. I wonder how many more secrets he's collected, how many more files he has in those cabinets. The worst part is knowing he's still there, watching, collecting pieces of everyone's private lives, one screenshot at a time. I keep this secret to myself. I'm haunted by knowing what lurks behind locked doors. Sometimes I wake with terrible sweat, replaying his voice and those files piled high. If someone doesn't stop him, I fear his next future discoveries.